All right, I have a question for all my fellow curly hair girls out there. Does your hair have like 8 different types of curls? Because that's really what is like throwing me off of this. Like this side is way more curly. This side is like not even, it's like kind of wavy, you know, and like the back is like a combination of the two of them, and I just can't figure it out, and I'm trying really hard, and I'm really tired of losing so much hair because I don't treat it the right way. So I'm gonna try my best to finish off 2020 figuring out what to do for my hair and not straighten it anymore. Hey guys, thanks for coming back to check out another video. So I just caught myself in the viewfinder and I realized, you look a little off, you look a little funny. It's because I put on lip balm and my lip primer from NYX, and I did not put on any like actual lip products. So if I look a little weird, that's why. We're just gonna get through this and ignore that, okay? Pretend that Haley does know how to do makeup. So you are here today though to see, as you've probably guessed in the title, an eyeshadow singles tag. So I know that I have said, I've heard other people say it, where you depot the shadows or you buy singles and they just go into your Z palette or whatever, and they just don't get used. They don't get used. So this is the kickoff to let's end the year right and start 2021 right and not neglect our single and depotted shades. So this is also a collab video with Laura and Kailee. I'm gonna leave both of their channels linked down below. All of our videos should go live, I don't know about the same time, but definitely on the same day, which would be, you're gonna see this on Sunday. So I'm really excited to be collabing with them. If you haven't already checked out their channels, which I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, I think you would really enjoy both of them. Their content is just really nice. So yes, no further rambling on that. They will be down below. So what we did was we came up with 12 questions all about like single eyeshadows and depotted eyeshadows, and we thought this would just be kind of fun. And like, I like tag videos, hopefully you guys do too. So I do have to say though, when like researching to see if this has already been done before, I did find a channel, and I'm gonna apologize because I'm probably gonna butcher the name, but it's Zeyn. She did a like an eyeshadow singles tag about a year ago, I think. And so I'm gonna leave that video and her channel linked down below. I have not watched her video though, because I didn't want her answers to like influence mine in any way. So if some of the questions that we have come up with overlap with her questions, then that's just a coincidence. But I am going to give her credit because she did do this about a year ago. And then the other video and channel that I want to leave down below for you is about, I think I saw it stamped for like 7 months ago. Lauren May Beauty, she did a like pros and cons video of single eyeshadows. And again, I have not watched that one either because I don't want to be influenced. But just when I was trying to like research and see if this idea had been done before, those 2 videos came up, and so I thought I would include them for you just so you can go check them out as well. Okay, so without any further rambling, we're going to jump right into this. If you see me looking down, it's because I have the 12 questions listed or, written out, and I will provide a clean copy of all 12 questions in the description box. So if you're watching this and you want to do this, consider yourself tagged, okay? Or if you just want to answer it in the comments, but okay. Question 1, how many singles or depotted eyeshadows do you have? So let's quickly go over this. I have 3 Stila glitters, which I do consider like these are singles, they're still eyeshadows. I have 2 L'Oreal Infallible eyeshadows. I have 2 loose eyeshadows, one from ColourPop and one from Vienna Planet. I have 2 like cream eyeshadows. These are one's the Elf Smudge Pot and one is the Angel Face. And then let's see, I also have my like DIY cream eyeshadow that I'm working on in my Partners in Cream. I didn't grab that to pull that in here. I have 5 ColourPop Super Shock Shadows. You're only seeing 4 of them because, again, the other one is in my Partners in Cream and I just forgot to grab it. But there are 5 ColourPop Super Shock Shadows. I have depotted Blush Crush and some other ColourPop palettes and made my own build your own palette out of that. So there's that. I have depotted my ABH Subculture palette, which you guys are all very familiar with. I have my little BYOP palette that I did. BYOP palette. My own build your own palette that I did. But this is like a combination of like single eyeshadows, and there is one depotted eyeshadow in here from Tati Beauty palette. I depotted my Lorac Mega Pro 1, my Pro 1, and my Pro 3, and my Pro Brunch palette. So all of those shades are living in here. Then in my last like pink Z palette, I have a few, like I have 3 depotted little mini shades from Pat McGrath. And then these are like some depotted and single shadows that didn't fit in my new magnetic palette. So I have this Big Daddy, which is huge, like huger. It's more huge than my face. This is from Adept, but this is ultimately I would love for all of my single and depotted shadows, except for like the Lorac ones and the ABH Subculture palette. I would love for all my singles to like fit in here. So that is that. So if you were counting or trying to keep track, all in all, out of true singles, like singles that you actually buy from like a brand or like, you know, whatever, I have 49. I have 95 depotted shades. I have 9 like cream type shadows like the Super Shock shadows. And then I have the 3 like shimmer, like Steal a Glitter and Glows. One of them's from CoverGirl. And then I have the 2 loose shadows. So all in all, that makes for 158 singles. All right, question 2. What brands do you typically purchase singles from? So I have really, Laura sent me Dandelions singles for my birthday, and I have absolutely fallen in love with them. I am constantly like looking at their shop to see like what new like singles they've put out, and sometimes they'll do like curated like little palettes. Like I bought their 9-pan Glam and Groove. I don't consider that a palette. I was just looking at it more as like a singles bundle. But I really have fallen in love with them. Their mattes are very soft and powdery. So if you're not into like powdery matte shadows, stay away from that. But they are so easy to work with and so easy to blend, and their shimmer shades are amazing. So that's definitely been like my favorite like company to buy singles from. So, and I really got into single shadows through them because I do have like, I've ordered like some ColourPop single shadows before just to kind of like round out palettes and things like that. But that really, they really opened my eyes to like single shadows and maybe buying those instead of like a whole palette. Okay, question 3, how do you like to store your singles? So as you can see, it's a little bit of a mess the way I've stored them. So ultimately, like I said, I would love to just have one big giant Mac Daddy palette to where all of my singles could fit into it. And then I could, you know, once a month or every other month, take out about 9 to 12 shades and do these build your own palettes and really focus in, because this is overwhelming, but for storage purposes, it's really nice. I like this a lot better than multiple palettes. So I think that's the way that I want to go. But like I said, I have all those depotted Lorac shades and ABH Subculture. And so I really like the aesthetic of like what's in that Adept palette that I just showed you is all like standard 26mm pans. And these Lorac shadows are like tiny little squares. So I like these all together. They're all the same brand and things like that. So I would never like move these into a big palette like that. I have tried like having multiple Z palettes and breaking it up by like color, like putting all my like neutrals and browns together versus like all my pinks and purples and so on and so forth. And I don't like that. I like having the one big like master palette, and I like arranging it kind of in that color story where it's the gradient. Like I feel like even though all your samey shades are together, it really does make it easier to see, one, how many you have of one particular color, but then it does make it nice to like see and assess like, okay, this is the green that I want to pull, or this is the blue that I want to pull, and it's all right there. So that is how I like to organize mine. Okay, question number 4. Do you have more of one type of shade than any other? So I would have to say out of all of like my depotted shades, all of my singles, things like that, I definitely have way more like neutral brown colors, especially what I consider, I have a lot of like dark browns where maybe they're not like the same color. Like for instance, this one from MBA Cosmetics and this one from Tati Beauty, they're both dark brown and they're both a little bit different from each other, but I don't need both of them. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna use both of those in the same way. So quite honestly, like I really do want to go through and like swatch out all of my single shadows, especially those brown neutrals, and figure out like what I have dupes of and what I can part with. So maybe that'll be coming up in a video. But to answer the question, I predominantly have a lot of neutral taupey brown type shadows. Okay, question number 5. Do you prefer loose single eyeshadows or pressed single eyeshadows? So I have to say I only have the 2 loose shadows, like I said, one from ColourPop, one from Vienna Planet. And so it looks like that I would prefer the pressed eyeshadows, right? But I've been trying to like use these more. And so I kind of want to get into that realm of loose eyeshadows. And one reason is because I feel like from what I've seen from a lot of indie brands, they do like multi-chromes. And I feel like when I look at the brands that have both a pressed multi-chrome and a single like loose shadow version of the multi-chrome, I feel like the loose just pops a little bit better, like the shift is a little bit better. So I'm really interested, in just multi-chromes, but I think that is what's really pushing me towards being more interested in loose shadows. So I'm gonna have to say like my preference is leaning towards that just because I want to get into it and try them more. All right, so question number 6, what is your favorite single depotted loose eyeshadow that you own? I have to say that mine is coming from Dandelions and it's the shade Dahlia. This is a perfect electric dupe. If you have Subculture and you're fussing with electric, can't get it to work, then I would highly recommend this out. It's so pretty. Hopefully, let me build that up. That was one swatch. It's kind of cloudy outside, but I don't have the ring light on. What was I saying though? Oh, this is like just everything that electric, like that you want electric to be from Subculture, or if you had your eye on Subculture but didn't purchase it, but you still have your eye on like that kind of shade, like this is the way to go. I absolutely love this. Definitely my favorite single shadow. And who's surprised, really? I picked a green. Like, who is surprised? No one. No one is surprised at all at you, Haley. All right, so then question number 7. It's only fair that it would be, what is your least favorite single depotted or loose eyeshadow that you have? And mine comes from the Jaclyn Hill Morphe Palette Volume 2. It is the shade Lolly Mama. So I honestly just keep this around because when I did my last collab with Laura and she duped the Tribe palette and I duped the Deuce palette, I put this shade in here because it fit, I think it's that middle like kind of pinky purple shade. This is what I used to dupe that shade. So I keep it because I really have FOMO over the Deuce palette. So, but I don't like this one. It's patchy, it's hard to work with, it's hard to blend out. And then it's not like a super big deal, but it does stain your eyelids a little bit. And so like if I wear it, I have to be prepared for the next day to want to have like a dark outer corner or like a not so like toned down transition shade or lid shade. That way I can kind of like mask it and cover it up, if that makes sense. So yeah, this would definitely be my least favorite shade that I have. All right, I was halfway through answering question 8 and my battery died, so I'm just gonna start question 8 over. So if the angle changed a little bit, like, I'm sorry. Okay, question 8, do you have any tips for depotting shadows? So I, like with the rest of these, like I obviously like wrote down like an answer, but it was one of those things like with the rest of the questions, like I'll just fluff out the answer and give you the explanation on camera. But with this one, like I actually wrote it out. So if I'm looking down, that's why, because I have like actual notes on this one. So first thing I would say is try to research and see if whatever you're depotting has a magnetic pan or if it's a glued in pan. If it's a glued in pan, it doesn't mean that you can't depot it. It's just going to be a lot harder. Magnetic pans, you can just easily pop them out. And what I have found is that there's no like, unless you accidentally like gouge the side of the shadow when you're trying to get the magnetic pan to pop out of the packaging, there's no like actual damage caused. Whereas when it's a shadow that's like glued into the pan, what I have found is that, yes, I can pop it out. I can get the glue, you know, to come away from the packaging. But a lot of times the shadows will crack, and then that leads to crumbling. And a lot of times you don't see those cracks right away until it's too late. You've put it in your Z palette, closed it, put it up, and it's like crumbled everywhere. I would also say to, if it is a glued in shadow that you are trying to remove, go super, super slow with it. Make sure that you have a lot of time that day and that your patience is there, because you will get frustrated with it. I would also say, like, when it is a shadow that is glued into the pan, try to work it from like multiple angles to kind of like evenly pull it out of there. And then I found that when I do it that way, that also helps to deter like any crumbling or breaking of the shadow from happening. And then also I would say, anytime you depot a shadow, even if it is like a magnetic pan, I would still just be super, super aware that there could be like little hairline cracks in the shadow, and that can just cause big chunks of it to crumble and like flake away. It's like, there's nothing worse, I feel like, than pulling out your Z palette after you've done a depotting job, opening it up and finding just eyeshadow has spilled out everywhere. I think it's the worst thing ever. In my experience, I have depotted ABH, I have depotted Lorac, I have depotted Morphe, I have depotted ColourPop, Tarte, a lot. Morphe is the worst offender to give you cracked eyeshadows, and their pans especially, I don't know if their pans are like made out of a really soft like aluminum type material, I don't know, but their pans tend to warp when you like pull them out. So that's also extra frustrating. Honestly, I just wouldn't even fool with depotting Morphe shadows at this point. Like I said, I used to own the Jaclyn Hill Volume 1 and Volume 2. They were gifts from my husband. And so I thought, like, I'm just going to depot these. And I'd like decluttered a few shades that were just too repetitive. But then I combined those two palettes into like 1 or 2 Z palettes, and like I have lost over, I would say 90% of those shades, just because the pans were so warped, they cracked, they spilled everywhere. It was just a mess. So, and then finally, the last tip, if you're going to depot your shadows, I know it's a pain in the butt, and I know, like, you might think, I'll write them down on a piece of paper, like I'll remember what they are, I'll put them in a spreadsheet or something like that. That's all fine and well, but I highly recommend that you take a Sharpie out and write it on the back what the shade name is, where it comes from if you can, or something like that, because I have been that person, like, I'm gonna write it on a piece of paper, lost the piece of paper. I'm gonna put it in a spreadsheet in the computer and list them in order, but then I'll go through and like rearrange the palette, and so then it's not like matching up anymore. So I would just highly recommend writing the name on the back. Okay, so question number 9, why do you depot your shadows? And if you depot your shadows, do you regret it? So I have to say, this is my prime example, is this Lorac like Z palette that I showed you. So I depotted this because, like I said, this has the Mega Pro 1, the Pro 1, the Pro 3, and the Pro Brunch in it. And I did lose some shades. Lorac pans are not magnetic, so I did have some shades like crack, crumble, break. But for most part, I got all of them in here. So I did it to kind of like cheat the system. 1, to save space, because like I said, that was like 4 palettes that now live in here. But also, like, when I do my palette inventory, like, I'm cheating. I'm listing this as 1 palette and not the original like palettes that it came from. So maybe you agree with that, maybe you don't, but that was just how it worked out in my head. However, I will say I do regret depotting the palettes that I have depotted. I wish I wouldn't have done it, because I missed the color stories that they offered. Like, yeah, Lorac is pretty notorious for being a standard like neutral, like every palette they do is neutral, but the like the Pro 3 that I depotted was such a good like soft like kind of bridal palette. The Pro Brunch was just a really great like pastel palette, and I really missed those color stories. And I know that I could like just take the shades out of here and like put them into their own little like palette by themselves, like I did with Subculture, but then it kind of defeats the purpose of like, well, I was trying to save space in the like at the beginning. So that's just my tip. If you're gonna depot something, think really long and hard about the color story of the palette you're depotting and if you're gonna miss that in any way. Okay, question number 10. Do you have any tips for not neglecting your single eyeshadows? This is the question that I want everyone to answer because like I said, I am notorious for neglecting these. But I have discovered that doing a build your own palette series has really helped. I have been pulling for this so much. I used a lot of Pan Those eyeshadows today and the Saharan from Juvia's Place, but I have been reaching into here for like one shadow at a time or like two shadows at a time. I've done one whole look using this palette, but it has been really nice to like help pull these out and use them. So I highly encourage you to somehow do like a build your own palette. And then another thing that's really helped me get use out of my singles is that when I see a new release and it's something that I want, I will try to dupe that release as best as I can, only using my single or depotted shadows. So then that way you're reaching in there more. It gives you fresh new eyes on them, and maybe you'll see like, oh, I have like over half of that palette in single shadows. So definitely recommend when you dupe a palette, try to just use your depotted and single shadows to accomplish that. All right, question 11. If you had the choice, like you can only choose one, you either get to keep all of your loose singles, single eyeshadows, depotted shades, anything like that. You get to keep all of those, or keep all of your eyeshadow palettes. Which do you choose? Now let me first say, I love all of my eyeshadow palettes and I'm not really going to get rid of any of them, let's be real. And I went back and forth on my answer for this question, but I think I would have to say that if you told me I can only keep one set, what's it gonna be? I'm gonna keep my depotted shadows and my single eyeshadows and things like that, because it would just be kind of freeing, you know? Like, as weird as that sounds, I love all of my palettes, but they can get a little overwhelming sometimes. So I think it would be like a more manageable collection. And I do like having the variety of palettes. I feel like I'm having to justify this to you. I'm not decluttering my eyeshadow palettes, okay? But it would just be nice. I think it would be more freeing. I think it would give me the ability to almost be more creative, because with singles, like I said, you can create like your own color stories and things like that. So I also think it would be nice because there's a lot of times like I'll see something new, like a new palette, and I'm like, oh, I really want that. And then I get it and like bring it home and I'm looking at it and comparing it to my other palettes. Maybe not every single shade is the same, but there's like enough same to where it's like, did you really need both? So I feel like if you just had singles, you could take them out more easily, look at them, decide before you buy like that new palette or that new single, like, do I already have that? So I just think that overall it would be, like I said, just more manageable, easier to work with, things like that. But my palettes are not going anywhere. All right, final question. Why do you purchase? Why do you purchase single eyeshadows? So for me, I have to say I have fallen in love with purchasing them because I feel like they are, one, a great way to support like a brand, especially like an indie brand, without like committing and adding in like another large palette to your collection. And then, like I said, I think it's great to do the build your own palettes and make like a little color story that you're just absolutely in love with for that like particular time. I also think that it's all like singles are a great way to like round out a palette. So like, I know we probably all have our favorite palettes, but even like your most favorite palette, there's probably still something in there that you would change, or it's like missing a color that you want. So I think a single eyeshadow is a great way to like purchase what you feel like is missing from like your favorite palettes to make them more complete, rather than like buying a whole nother palette as a companion palette. Hopefully that answer makes sense. But yeah, so that's why I like to purchase them. So that is it. That is all 12 questions. We got through them. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you Laura and Kaylee for doing this video with me. I love collabing with you guys. So like I said in the intro, everyone that I have like mentioned or referenced, all of those videos, everything will be in the description box, and I highly encourage you to check everyone out. And I just appreciate, sometimes I just talk too fast and run my words together. I appreciate you guys coming along for this journey, you know, sitting through and watching me answer all these questions. And like I said, I would love if other people would do this. If you want to just answer it down in the comments, that's fine. If you want to make your own video, Instagram post, whatever, let me know down below if and when you do it, and then that way I can be sure to check out your video. And I thank you guys again. I hope you guys are all having a great weekend, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.